Yes,
To another. That was not supposed to pop up. Stupid Twitch. Anyhow, screwing up my intro there. So for those that might be new to this, this is the first one that we've done live. I was trying to do these video on demand format, but because I'm a piece of shit and I'm having a hard time editing them in a prompt fashion, I'm try to do what I can live and then go back through, re-edit them to try to make them more visually appealing in video on demand format. But nonetheless, today I have a special guest with me here from our beloved community, Mr. Dosh. How are you doing this evening?
Insert the applause and clapping sounds.
I know, and you know what? I honestly would, but I totally forgot. I deleted my soundboard off of here. I forgot. I was like, "Where is my button?" I was like, "Oh fuck! I forgot I deleted that."
uh,
Because I was going back to
no,
revamp it and I never did it.
all good. We'll add this as an extra. But I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Getting ready to getting ready to talk about the gaming world. How you doing?
I am doing fantastic. And speaking of the gaming world, today we have a slew of things that we are trying to cover. We might not be able to cover all of them tonight, but we felt like throwing the subjects that we have in line together made the most sense. So we were wanting to start by kind of talking about the Game Genie, the Gameshark, and other cheating hardware that was out in the retro era. And then also, if we can get to this point, this would be on the back end of it, which would be the early days of the cheat slash walkthrough websites like IGN, because in the 90s IGN actually was a reputable website, believe it or not. And it was a good source for not only cheats but also for walkthroughs and stuff like that. So we're gonna possibly get into that, but again, we're gonna focus more on the backstories of these, um, like I said, the game, the cheats, and all that stuff, the hardware associated with all that stuff. And there is a lot that I found out as far as the Game Genie, not so much Game Shark. I feel like Dosh got more in depth with the Game Shark than I was able to, so it's kind of helps in that regard. But there were some things that I learned that went behind the scenes with the Game Genie that I had no idea about, and we'll get to that in just a moment. And I see Mr. Frank is with us here in the house. Welcome, Frank.
Frankie.
I don't know who is with us on Twitch, but I see we do have a lurker among us.
What's up, Twitchers?
Yeah, that's right. So
Word.
let's see here. Getting okay. So I'm gonna bounce between this screen and then this screen to go back between the chat, and then you guys can kind of see what I'm reading off of. So before I dive into the kind of backstory of what we can kind of summarize with the Game Genie and stuff that went on behind the scenes, um, I personally didn't have too much experience with the Game Genie. I did have only the experience with the NES version of the Game Genie, but I did want to show you guys. I actually have the SNES Game Genie, and I have one of the code books for it here, just to show you guys that. But I also have to show you guys this right here is the picture of all of the Game Genies. So you have the one that I showed you in the top right. There's the Super Nintendo one. The one below that is the Genesis. Then to the left is for the Game Boy. And then the one to the left of that is the Nintendo one. And
I
the
remember
irony is,
watching it.
I don't know about you, Dosh, but looking at this, I don't know if you have the podcast up or not, but if you do, to me, the Nintendo one looks the jankiest of them all. I don't know if they did that on purpose or just happened to be that way just because
Well,
it
it's
was the
so
oldest.
it's so weird. I think the video game nerd, he had a video that lightly covered the game Genie because he had to use it to get through a game that had it messed up its ending. But I'm pretty sure he used that one. But the way it's set up was super weird. Like such a such a
I
freaky
want to
looking
say it's,
device.
if I remember right, it sticks out of the system when you have it all in it, like the game cart and everything. Like it just like after it's plugged in, like it sticks out so far. Like you have to have the case open and shit.
Just hangs out.
Yeah.
Like what happens if you walk into it or if your cat rolls over it? You know.
Yeah, that is from a functionality standpoint. Yes, that's not good. I would think just based off of how these are loaded up, the Game Boy one looks to be the most sturdy because it looks like once you plug that into the top, you kind of got like a back support. It looks like on there, so that one at least looks remotely, sturdy. Super Nintendo and Genesis, hooey man, you're in, like you said, you trip over it, you might as well kiss your whole system goodbye. It's probably gonna snap the circuit board right off.
Yeah, because there's no connector or there's nothing supporting the connection between the cartridge and like the Game Genie itself. So
No.
if you brush up on it,
Oh yeah.
it's disconnecting that connection there, and then you're probably gonna get like a corrupted save file, or
oh yeah,
your game's gonna get whacked out.
oh for sure. And yes, Frank, everything is all well on our end. Did you happen to have any sort of interactions with either, Game Genie, Gameshark, or any sort of the cheat hardware stuff that came out back in the day? If so, obviously just let us know. But yeah, getting back to the Game Genie here, and then this here was the beloved Game Genie logo. Oh yeah, it was. I seen that thing all over the place, and as a kid, I didn't understand it because like you got to think too, guys. Because I know I'm not trying to act like I am an old man per se, but as far as the age difference between Dash and I, but I grew up seeing this as far as the Game Genie, and he is more familiar with Gameshark, right? So you got to remember, for me, seeing this as a kid, my mind was blown because there was no internet. So I'm going from straight up just Genesis, playing games, and if we found out any cheats, it was from word of mouth. Like it was a button combination. Like everybody knew that the Konami code, and then like there was one that there was for Aladdin to skip through the levels on the Genesis, and if I remember right, it was like start A, B B A A B B A A, and you kind of kept bouncing between the two, and then you'd hear like a beep, and then it'd go to the next level, and like that was all like, oh man, that's the shit. So then when this came out, the Game Genie, I was like curious as to how it would work because like my brain couldn't grasp like how it would work. Now, mind you, also I was a little kid, so I mean, little kid, a lot of things are going to go way over their heads. But I was like, how the heck does this thing work? You just plug it in and you can do this and blah blah blah. So speaking of that, I wanted to show you guys real quick a commercial from the 90s of the Game Genie. So here we go.
Game over? No way! Because we got Game Genie! We tell you when it's over.
With Game Genie, I decide how many lives I get.
I use it when I want to live forever.
Play to the end and win.
Oh,
Maybe
this
I
video.
want to start on level 15.
No problemo!
It makes cool
No
games.
problemo.
Too more exciting.
That's
They're
frustrating.
overacting.
Game Genie, it ain't
Oh, yeah.
over. So we say it's over. Excellent!
Game Genie,
So-
Audio
NES,
going
Super
through
NES,
on
Sega
your end?
Genesis, and Game Boy. Codes from many popular games, each sold separately.
So that
Man, what an ad! What an ad!
so that was literally the reason why they were acting like that, for those that might not know, or if they didn't put two and two together. During that time, Bill and Ted was huge. So they were literally basically just talking like Bill and Ted. Like over the top, whoa, woo, going freaking acting like
Yeah.
dumbasses. So that was the whole shtick. But they just cracked me up though, because like they used the thing saying, if I want to go level 15, no problem. What if there is no level 15? How about that? You can't go there. It doesn't exist.
Says a lot about what the Game Genie was capable of. Because if you, like, I would have been amazed by the fact that you inserted a device that just changes numbers on the cartridge
Yeah.
without completely bricking your game. Like
Yeah.
that's a mind-blowing concept for me. If I was a kid and I, like I had that in my hands at the time, like that at the like that would have been unheard of.
Oh yeah, dude, it was crazy. Like when I heard that, because like it didn't make sense. You know what I mean? Because all you ever knew up to that point was you played a game, you played it all the way through, or at least tried to, and if you couldn't, well, I guess you're shit out of luck. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
you're not with the cool kids that are able to
No,
get it. Oh my
no.
goodness.
And I know I don't mean to sound like I'm patting myself on the back because this is on a local level, but on a local level, I just happen to be that kid that, I felt like, at least in my area, anyways, it felt like you had somebody in the group that if you couldn't beat a certain spot in a game, you'd have said buddy do it for you. I was that guy. They'd be like, oh, I gotta get a hold of Eric because we're stuck. And even
Yeah,
though I'd
yeah.
be sitting there like, I have no idea what I'm doing, they're like, oh, you'll figure it out. And it would take me a while, but I would push myself to figure it out because they knew that I was that type of gamer back then that I didn't want to have a video game that I couldn't fully complete because I felt like, it'd be a waste of space or whatever. Like I'm like, it's a game. I need to finish it. I need to figure it out. It's a challenge. If it's I always felt in my head, if they released this game, it can be beat. It's just I have to figure it out. But um yeah, so and you said yourself you personally didn't have any interactions with it physically, correct? The
With
Game
Game
Genie?
Genie,
Yeah.
no. Growing up, like the most access that I had to consoles that predated, I want to say the Dreamcast was the Genesis and the Saturn, and I had nothing like in additional to that. It was just those games, and then I had like a handful of like Sega games like Altered Beast, um, Alex, Sonic, but
Yeah.
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't game the the game cheating devices didn't fall in my lap until after I had purchased the PlayStation 2 actually.
Okay. So, just getting started, we're going to try to go through this and try to summarize the best of our abilities here. And I don't want to overlook anything, so I'm going to try my best to kind of give you guys the cliff notes without missing stuff, I'm hoping. So, it's showing that it was originally designed by Codemasters, which, ironically enough, there's a game that Codemasters made that is on one of my most hated lists, which is Fantastic Dizzy. And I'm in the process of doing a video of going over my raging about that and as to why. But I don't want to say it's on the level of Lemmings, but, I don't like it. But anyways, so designed by Codemasters, sold by Camerica and Galoob, which Galoob was a toy manufacturer back in the 90s that did other things outside of the Game Genie for those that might not have known that little fun tidbit of the day. So it was the first device in the series was released in 1990 for the NES. And then it says with subsequent devices released for the SNES, Game Boy, Genesis, and Game Gear, but I couldn't find a picture of the Game Gear one, so that's why I just showed you guys the ones that I did.
Yeah.
All Game Genie devices temporarily modified gaming data, allowing the player to do things unintended by developers, such as, depending on the game, cheating, manipulating various aspects of the game, and accessing unused assets and functions. 5 million units of the original Game Genie products were sold worldwide, and most video game console emulators feature Game Genie code support. Emulators that have Game Genie support also allow a near unlimited number of codes to be entered, whereas the actual products have an upper and lower limit between 3 and 6 codes. And the like I said, the one that I got to see was on the NES, and I remember the kid across the street from me was so amped on getting this thing. He's like, "I got the Game Genie. Yeah, we can cheat and do this, that, and the other thing." And the thing was, though, is because for those that might not know this about the NES, is as we know as retro gamers, it didn't always work. Just the games in general, you would have to get the games to work, which was already a tedious process in of itself because, you're kids, you're not keeping up on cleaning your pins and stuff like that. And
right, you're just plugging in, playing the
yeah,
game.
right. So that was hard enough. So now you're talking, you're going to plug it into this thing that now this thing has to plug into your NES. So now you're just adding one more obstacle to try to get this damn thing to work. And I'll never forget. And mind you, his Game Genie was brand new. He waited until I got over there to test it out. And it took us like an hour to get it to fire up this game. because it wouldn't fire up. It was so bad. But, yeah, we finally got to work. And, of course, as a kid, you always go for like infinite lives right out of the gate. Well, I want to make sure I can die a bajillion times and I can keep going. And, I honestly can't remember what the game was. I really can't. Usually, like, I have, like, stuff kind of, like, it pops out in my head as to what happened at certain points in my life. But that one, I can't remember the exact game. I do know it was the Nintendo. And I just remembered it took forever for it to finally fire up. So, it kind of jumped ahead here and went from 1990 all the way to 93. It just says Codemasters began development on a Game Genie 2 with Galoob to market and distribute the device in North America, but no Game Genie devices were released for the 5th generation consoles. Other companies have produced similar hacking devices such as the Codebreaker, Action Replay, and Gameshark, and then the Game Genie brand was later revived by the company Hyperkin, who released cheat systems with newer consoles. Which, yes, that's something that I was looking into myself, is getting one of those Hyperkin consoles for trying to stream the retro games that I have physically, but maybe I don't want to have to go all the way over to my setup, disconnect whatever console I want to do, bring it over here, hook it up, and then play, because that would make my life so much more easy. You know what I mean? But yeah, we'll talk about Codebreaker, Action Replay, and Gameshark as well as we go through this. But one thing that happened during this whole Game Genie thing coming out, which I did not know this, and I believe, Dash, you said you did not know this as well. Correct me if I'm wrong when we were talking earlier, but the creators of the Game Genie were actually sued by Nintendo, and back in the day, because again, no internet, I just assumed as a kid the Game Genie was somehow like a Nintendo product, or a Genesis product, because I was like, why else would they allow you to use these things on their machines? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, they're not affiliated one bit, and there was a lawsuit that happened. And from what I had read, it sounded like at first Nintendo really wasn't going to do anything. And then for whatever reason, Galoob did something to basically poke the bear with Nintendo about something. And I couldn't figure out exactly as to what it was. It just said that they contacted them, and that's what prompted Nintendo to fire back with a lawsuit. So I don't know exactly what was said, and it could have been, the reason why I couldn't find it could be because I further read that due to the litigations and stuff that went on throughout the court process, there was non-disclosure agreements and stuff like that, so that might be why I couldn't find anything on it. But it just said that pretty much Galoob poked the bear first. So ironically enough, it wasn't Nintendo, like how Nintendo goes after these emulation sites and stuff like that for copyright infringement and stuff like that. they actually didn't go after the creators of Game Genie first. It was actually the opposite, which is weird. Like, why not just make your money and shut the fuck up? I don't know. Why bother going after Nintendo for anything is beyond me. But yeah, so that ensued, and then ironically enough, Nintendo, even though they issued the lawsuit, they actually lost the lawsuit and ended up having to pay money, which I'm going to try to find here what the exact amount was, which I'm not sure if I'll be able to find, but I know it was in the millions, that's for sure. I just can't remember. Oh, there's another site I got here that I was reading up on stuff. And this person was actually, this is a very thorough article, but I read most of it, but it was very, very lengthy. And I was trying to see, I don't think they actually showed the actual amount of money that they ended up getting, but I just remember him saying it was in the millions. But that being said, I also wanted to bring this up while it's still fresh in my head, talking about the lawsuit. We have a quick little news article video that I found through this website that you guys can take a look at here.
Two brothers from Warwickshire have won more than
can only
£2 million
imagine how that
from
meeting
the
went
computer
after
giant
Nintendo
Nintendo
Oh,
in
yeah.
a courtroom battle in the United States. David and Richard Darling invented the game Genie, which can make video games easier or more difficult.
Like, yo, who's responsible
Nintendo
for
said the
setting up
game
this
breached
lawsuit?
copyright, but
That'd
the
be me.
company lost
You're
the
fired.
case.
Right.
For Richard Darling, this £70,000 sports car is just one of the spoils of victory. It was in these converted farm buildings in Warwickshire that he and his brother nurtured and then perfected their invention. It costs around £40, and it
There's
makes
that
computer
bastard
video
Dizzy to the
games
left of the
easier
TV.
or harder. The
you.
giant Nintendo company, claiming breach of copyright, took action in America to stop it being sold, but they failed.
We have a lot of good creative people here developing good original products, games, and things like the game Genie. And for a company like Nintendo to think just because they're powerful and dominant in the marketplace that they can stifle that sort of thing, is wrong. And I'm glad they didn't succeed.
Worldwide, sales of the Darling Brothers gadget have exceeded £65 million. Although some video buffs love it, as it can make games
Way to stick
last
it to the
longer,
man.
others don't think it's worth it.
I like to play with what they've given you and to feel that I completed it the way they packaged the game, you know.
I don't think they're worth it because you're paying £40 for it and it's just to cheat the game. I mean, you buy a game to play it, not to cheat it, just run through the baddies to the end. It's not worth it.
So there you've seen also what they were saying was basically when they were interviewing these people, you've seen them just, of course, this is media, spinning it like the Game Genie was a piece of shit because they just had two people say basically they didn't like the idea of the Game Genie, that they just want to play the games for what they are, and that's it. But I don't know, I don't want to say unbeknownst to them, maybe they found out later or they just didn't know, but the Game Genie could actually make those games harder. It wasn't even just that you could cheat to get through them faster. There were certain things that you could do to make the game harder for you to beat, and could actually add a level of not just difficulty, but another experience for the game. Instead of just playing it once and shelving it, now you can do XYZ to manipulate it to make it harder and have a new experience with the same game.
You think they did that because they knew there would be complaints, or
I don't
was
know.
there a need to have options?
I don't know. I honestly I don't know.
Because I can totally see it being a situation where, we have the power to make this completely one-sided for the player, but we're going to allow them to make the game how they want it to be. Because at the end of the day, they bought the game and that's theirs.
Right.
I think, because I came across a comment that was along the lines of like, times were simple then, and somebody was making the argument that there were still rental agreements on certain media and entertainment even back then. But for the most part, like, what you bought was what you owned. And
Yeah.
with games, that was a lot more evident than nowadays, where online is required to even complete your terms and conditions to play the game.
Yeah, which is insane to me. Like it shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be that way whatsoever. You should
Yeah.
not have to have the internet to play a video game. I feel like that in of itself is like theft. I feel.
Yeah. So I'm honestly glad in the sense that they ended up winning that lawsuit because it wasn't a lawsuit towards defaming or assassinating any of their property rights because they bought the game. Like that
Yeah.
property is theirs now, you know?
Yep. Exactly. There and I get Nintendo's argument could be, but yeah, but they have to use our stuff to use their thing. It's like, yeah. So what? That's just like
Right.
saying, okay, you bought whatever car and you put something on it to make it either perform better or look better. What are you going to do? You're going to be as the automaker, you're going to sue that company and go, hey, you just made an accessory for my car. Fuck you. Like,
Right.
you can't
And
do that.
and to add to that, like that's like saying that's like having Gameshark sue other people for making Gameshark knockoffs.
Yeah.
But they didn't do that. They saw that there were other people that were making these accessories extremely similar to theirs. So what they ended up doing was um, adding like proprietary features to their Gameshark so that their their templates wouldn't be copied. So that everything kind of comes back to them. Like this is still their thing at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And everyone else would just have to come up with their own setup.
And it's one thing, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole too terribly much, but the one thing that's interesting to me about finding out about this, as far as like them winning that whole thing with Nintendo, is remember how I was talking to you about the game show idea
Yeah.
for the channel? I was like, I wonder if by me doing certain things, like if I came up with that said idea but turned it into like a game that you could actually do in your house, if they would actually be able to sue me or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it'd be something similar to that, as long as I don't use any names. That is, you know what I mean? Like I can't say like, "Hey, Sonic the Hedgehog," this, that, and the other thing. Like I know I couldn't do stuff like that. But if I said, pick X games to do this, that, and the other thing,
You'd have to find creative ways to mention it without
Mm-hmm.
Oh look, it's a copyrighted name. Lawsuit, right?
Yeah, like say like,
You
pick X platformer game and do XYZ, or pick a, just, you know what I mean, just go like genre wise and say pick a game from this genre, and then, you know what I'm getting at basically.
Yeah.
But yeah. Like when I read that, I was like, huh. That just made the gears go a little bit, like, what? Okay, because I was kind of worried about that, and I was honestly worried about that. I mean, I don't know. From a streaming standpoint, I was worried about it, but then when I read that, I was like, you know what? They can't do a fucking thing, because I could say, what? I'm using my games. Fuck you. You're gonna do start suing every streamer for playing video games? Like, eat a bag of dicks.
It's 2023. We've seen a lot of weird things happen. In 2022, anything's possible.
That's true.
And that's sad.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if a game company decided to prioritize content creators on a grand scale using one system and focused on, did they mention this name? CDO immediately,
Who is it? Did you just say CDO?
Cease and desist.
Oh. I'm like, oh, no. Yeah. Where was I at? Trying to skip back here now. Alright, where would we leave off? So we're talking about the lawsuit. So, again, just real quick, just touching on the Game Genie again. I want to try to find real quick, not code breakers, swears. I wanted to see what their full sales were if I can. Yeah, but I read the thing where they were talking about doing the Game Genie 2 and then they decided to scrap it for whatever reasons. Oh, going into the legal issue saying, yeah, so there was a saying, there was a Thank You Canada poster made because Canada was the first one to basically give Nintendo the middle finger because it went off in Canada first, and then they were like, no, fuck you, there was no copyright infringement, so then they had a poster that said Thank You Canada, which I can show you guys on this website here. Where are you at? There it is. Alright, so you can see right here, this poster here was made. And so that was the first thing, and then it went on into America. But they said it took almost, I believe, 2 years before. It was like a year, like almost a year, like a year and a half to 2 years before it was finally done.
Yeah.
So it could not be stopped from being sold in the U.S. Did you want to add in on that?
No, not really. Other than kind of wondering, like, how, in spite of, like, because it was getting popular, right?
Yeah.
It's still, I mean, they still got hung up on, and just really couldn't get past, like, the financial woes.
I think because, like, what ended up happening was because, in 1990 you got the NES, right?
Yeah.
So they made that for the NES, and they said they sold 5 million units, which is a lot.
5 million?
Yeah, for back then, that's a lot. So you have that, and once this started happening, this legal issue thing, they had to temporarily stop until the court hearings were done. So maybe the court hearings prolonging stuff kind of fucked everything, because you got to think, especially when you go back to the timeline of retro gaming, where the timeline of stuff was, you basically fucked them, because by 95, you might as well say that's the back end of the SNES Genesis era, because Saturn, 64, and PlayStation were right around the bend.
Yeah.
So you might have gotten maybe 1 to 2 more years of sales after that.
Yeah, if your production or anything halted for that long, yeah, you're pretty much screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I know they got money from the settlement, which I'm sure that's because of that, but I still don't know if that was enough to really
recover get back on track.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
It really is.
Because there was support behind it, obviously, but it wasn't enough to keep them from having to change hands with it.
So just kind of going over as far as just what they had for each one. So the NES one, it just says how it's connected. So it says NES Genie attaches to the end of the NES cartridge, causing the cartridge to protrude from the console when fully inserted, which is what we talked about, making the depression impossible. Therefore, the Game Genie was designed in such a way that it did not need to be depressed in order to start the game. This design put even more stress on the LIF socket than standard game insertion, bending pins and eventually causing units to be unplayable without the Game Genie present. Now, how fucked is that? It just fucks your NES up. Here, use our product. Fuck your Nintendo.
Hope you weren't planning on playing this for Christmas, Timmy.
Exactly. And it says the Game Genie's shade made it difficult to insert into a new style NES without applying excessive force. Galoob addressed this problem by creating an adapter with was offered to Game Genie owners for free. Well, that's at least nice. They gave you something for free. Because, I mean, shit, nowadays, like Nintendo, like, for instance, this just popped in my head. Because, In this instance, they're like, "Hey, Galoob, we have this issue." And they're like, "Oh, here, we'll give this to you for free." I think of when Mario Party first came out for N64. Hey, everybody's burning out their palms doing the freaking windy things on the freaking joysticks. And what's Nintendo's freaking response? We're going to start selling a glove that you need to buy to play the game. And you're going to pay for it. We're not giving it away. Fuck your fucking hands, little kid. Yeah, get some calluses on them hands.
Got a business to run. Get beat it.
Exactly. Oh, so it says there also exists a version of the Game Genie for the Famicom, distributed by Realtek and sold in areas where Famiclones were common. And then going to the SNES, the Super NES edition is incompatible with certain games such as Star Fox, Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars, as these games use pins that went unused in most games. It also had problems with the SNS-101, as only 2 codes can be used at a time. There are 3 known versions of the SNES Game Genie. When comparing to PCBs of V1 and V2, V2 has much fewer components. All 3 versions look exactly the same on the outside, but when V11 is booted up, it will have dashes present before any code is entered. The only way to tell V1 and V2 apart is by opening the case and checking the PCB. And going on to Game Boy, it says its edition similarly has a slot for cartridges while itself needing to be inserted into the console's game slot. It has 2 face buttons for toggling codes on and off. To return to the code input screen, this edition also houses a compartment to contain a very small code booklet in the back. Now again, remember how long ago this is? This is actually a really good idea for how long ago this was, because you gotta think this was, God, it makes me feel old. 30 fucking years ago, man.
Wow.
So I was 6 years old. God.
Years ago.
Jeez. Oh,
I was
God.
7. No, I wasn't even born. I was negative 7 years old.
God. It says the physical design made it difficult to be used with any version of the Game Boy other than the original. Although it could be made to work if one attempted to use the Game Genie on the Game Boy Pocket, Game Boy Light, or Game Boy Advance, they would find the large top portion of the Game Genie would come into contact with the top of the handheld before it was fully engaged. Therefore, the Game Genie would need to be bent backwards in order to function, placing strain on the mechanism that allows it to be pressed down far enough to reach the cartridge contacts. So again, damaging your Game Boy.
Right. It's almost not any better than the previous cartridges. We kind of got played looking at the image because it has the little hook at the end, so you're thinking, okay, this will clip right in there.
Yeah.
We won't have any problems, but you have to press it forcibly in there just enough to get it to connect.
Because what did I say when we were looking at stuff? I thought by looking at it that the Game Boy would be the most sturdy. Hell, it's no better than the NES one.
That's terrible. And once again, this was sold to kids.
Yeah, it was sold to kids, and you know,
kids aren't stupid.
No.
But if I was a kid,
I'd be pissed.
And a Game Genie was given to me, I would have no knowledge about how to do any of this. And if I had an instruction manual, I would toss that out because I don't have time to read that.
And not to mention, is it going to tell you in the instruction manual, by the way, you have to forcibly smash this thing down and possibly break your console? I'm sure it doesn't say that. So, you know, a kid's just going to do this and go, yeah, this doesn't even work right. They're going to get all pissed off and be like, Mom, this thing's junk. Send it back. So, despite this history, it will work with the Game Boy Advance SP. A standard unit will not fit in a Super Game Boy, but with some minor modification to the plastic, it can fit and work normally. There was also a third-party Super Game Boy to Game Gear or Game Genie adapter allowing the player to connect the Game Genie to a Super Game Boy cartridge. Which, by the way, I don't know. Do you collect any retro games, Dash?
I'm sure I have quite a collection of them. I used to when there was a game store nearby before they closed down.
Okay, because I was just gonna say
I don't currently collect. No.
The Super Game Boy was a fantastic thing that I feel like any retro collector should have, because you get to play. You don't need a Game Boy to play Game Boy games as long as you got that cartridge, and as long as that cartridge works. You plug any Game Boy game into that baby, plug it into your Super Nintendo, and off to the races you go. And it looks really good, and you get to put it on your TV instead of looking at this little freaking like 2-inch or 2.5-inch, whatever the fuck it was, square screen that you gotta like smash it up to your face to play. But luckily for me, I'm blind like Mr. Magoo, so I have to like sniff stuff to read it anyways. So I mean, I'm good in that.
It gave us
regard.
a nice presentation though, for sure.
Oh yeah, it most certainly did.
If you had the right TV for it, perfect.
Oh yeah.
Couldn't go any wrong. I love how the box comes off as if it's like a little transformer.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, going on to the Genesis / Mega Drive one, just similar thing. It just says Game Genie can function as a country converter cartridge, since most of these games are only locked to their respective regions by the shape of the cartridges and or a set of a few bytes in the header of the ROM. Some games do not work with the Genesis Game Genie. The unit is also not compatible with the 32X cartridges, which that's no shocker to me there. And then the Game Gear one, this is the one, like I said, I couldn't find a picture of it. It looks like even Wiki didn't have one because they don't have a picture on here either. The Game Gear version of the Game Genie had more complicated design than those for other systems, which inserted into the cartridge slot. Another slot would pop up to insert the Game Gear cartridge. It also had a component which contained a book of codes. The codes were printed on sticky labels to put on the back of the Game Gear cartridge. When entering the codes, the player could easily see what to type in rather than looking through the book. Okay, so then in the code input menu for the Game Gear Game Genie, a player typing the word dead would cause the screen to move up and down, possibly as an Easter egg. And it says again, some games do not work with this version of the Game Genie. So.
Oh man, so I can't stick it in my toaster?
Yeah, exactly. None for you, sir. So, now I would imagine do you have stuff on your end opened up to talk about the Gameshark? Because I'll open the floor up for you on that one if you would like.
Sure. So yeah, Gameshark is pretty much Game Genie, but it does a lot more because of the newer consoles that started rolling in, like with the Dreamcast and the PlayStation. I didn't know this at all, but apparently the Gamesharks for the GameCube, not the GameCube, the Dreamcast and the PlayStation 1 and 2, it gave you over 100 megabytes of space. Because the regular
that's a lot for back then. That's a lot.
Yeah, like the base one started out at 15. And I didn't know that. And I think that was before they started selling more different size memory cards. But Gameshark gave you way more to work with. There was a feature that taught you how to find the difference in the coding that gets changed when you input certain cheats. And I think they let you test it too. I don't know, but Gameshark was robust when it came out. Like they packed everything in there.
And what's funny, not to cut you off just real quick, I couldn't remember what a Gameshark looked like until I actually I looked into it and I was like, I do remember it. So this was the Gameshark that I remembered. So this is the picture of the N64 Gameshark. And I never got to see it used, though. My buddy had one. I seen it. I physically touched it. but I don't recall how it worked exactly. And I will let you continue on elaborate as to how to go about doing stuff.
Just like the one that I had sent you on eBay, that was the very first for the PlayStation 1. The Dreamcast, I can't exactly remember what that one looked like, but you insert it into where that memory card usually goes.
Okay.
Well, what I thought was funny was people started using it for the PlayStation 1. You inserted it into the back slot because there was like a port on the back end of the PlayStation 1. Sony caught wind of that and manufactured a new edition of the PlayStation 1 so that the port wasn't there. I think the company that was producing Gameshark at the time was called Daytel. I'm trying to remember. I could be wrong. But the solution afterwards was get it on a CD and then get it in the shape of a memory card. And how you would work it on the PlayStation 1 was you ran both of those at the same time. It would pull up this menu where it's Gameshark game codes. And I know I had mentioned you run the disc first and then you run the game, but I think the Gameshark had everything on it. I could be wrong.
Was it one of those things? Because I do recall, I don't know if it had to do with the Gameshark or not, but I do recall there was some goofy things back in the day where like you would actually you would do certain stuff, pop the hood open, and then put the game in, then start it up. And I don't know if that was it or not.
I think that might have been it, because when you start Gameshark, it gives you the option to start the game. There's an auto cheat mode. There's 2 different cheat modes, and it lets you update your games online, which I didn't know about. And there's an option to manage your memory saves. I found out with the PS2 you can transfer data between the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 3 onto the Gameshark memory card.
Okay.
And then I don't know if that allowed you to access that through PlayStation itself. I know you can access cutscenes with the game and with the game disc and other things without having to run the game necessarily. But the Gameshark for the PlayStation was pretty huge. I think it did the same thing with the GameCube and the Dreamcast as well.
Now, one thing real quick before it slips my mind, like we were talking about the back of the PS1. I always wanted to know what the hell was that port there for anyways. I never knew.
No idea.
Like, it's like, why put it there? If like, and then somebody finds a use for it, and you're like, no! What?
I wonder if it's maybe for formatting purposes or reformatting.
Maybe.
I don't know. You don't really PlayStation. You had to use there wasn't any.
I don't think there was anything in the manual that told you what that was. I don't think. I mean, not that I could remember, anyways.
Yeah. Well, you didn't have any files to save on the PlayStation 1. There wasn't any space for that. You had to have a memory card.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no clue what that back port was for.
Yeah, exactly. I never knew. I'm like, what the hell is this thing for, anyways? Like, I've never seen a game say like plug this thing in or whatever. Have you ever played any Thomas the Tank Engine games? No, I have not.
Yeah. Wait. Thomas the Tank Engine? That's probably on Gameshark.
I haven't. I haven't. I don't even think I've even heard any of any of those games, to be honest with you.
Thomas the Tank Engine?
No, I don't. Honest to God.
Yo, Burger King had his own video game.
Oh, I do remember that. I remember this wasn't retro, but I just remember like, you know, the things on the 360s. They had some shit like that Doritos thing that you had to do the crash, like the courses and all that shit. Some goofy crap like that. But I mean, I've seen some obscure stuff come out, but I don't remember no Thomas the Tank Engine.
Yeah.
When the hell did that come out? I mean, there's some stuff I don't remember.
I have no idea.
Maybe if
maybe if I
seen it. I'm gonna look.
They
it
put
up.
out anything, honestly. There's I mean, I remember the first time I started shopping for retro games. They had a Mary Kate and Ashley game. They had a Friends game.
How are you gonna
They
play
had
that?
they had BP, the gas station game, which I don't really know what you do with something like that. But most of those games served as promotional material, so I guess I kind of get it. But nonetheless, to have a Thomas the Tank Engine game, even though it's understandable, it's also kind of weird.
Yeah, I'm like trying to look to see like what it would have been on. Looks like, well, I'm seeing it looks like SNES, Genesis. Not quite sure what the premises would be here, but no, this does not look familiar at all. Like, I know who Thomas the Tank Engine was. I just didn't know. Like, I'm like, there was a video game. Like, it didn't click for me.
Yeah. The company, it is Datel or Datel. Before they filed bankruptcy because their partner company was losing a lot of money on this investment.
Okay.
They had a feature in Gameshark that allowed you to access your emails and download updates and content off the internet by just using a home line, like phone cable. So you just plugged it in, and I think it stayed connected to wherever you're getting the quote-unquote internet connection from. And that's how you got access to that stuff. They added some... I don't know how they did it, because when I first looked into this, they were reached out to by plenty of complaints about what their kids are accessing on the internet, so they only tailored the content that they access specifically towards the games and Gameshark's content itself. But as a kid, like, I never had access to that. Like, I never even knew Gameshark was that capable of.
Neither did I.
Yeah, and this was in the early 2000s, so we were still. When was Google a thing? Like 2005?
Oh God, no, dude! Google's been around. God, I want to say it was the earlier 2000s. I want to say, I'm thinking 2002, somewhere around there. Because I know I was in high school still, because it was like, I want to say somewhere between 2001, 2002 was when Netscape was like really getting basically decimated. They went from being like the top web browser to just dead in the water, like between Internet Explorer and then like when Google came out, it was somewhere around that era, you know.
Yeah.
So then that's how I kind of put the timeline together. It was somewhere around there. But yeah, I think it was somewhere around there, 2002, something like that. And I guess I can look that up real quick. Why not? Why not? Try to fact check ourselves here.
Guys, we're right 100% of the time. You don't need to.
Yeah, exactly.
Roy facts are the best facts, and that's all you need to know.
Okay, so Google was officially born August of 98.
Right. But they didn't fully...
But it probably wasn't like out until the early 2000s. I would probably imagine they're probably making the software and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's what I would imagine anyway. So it's probably like 99, 2000. It was actually called Backrub originally.
What a name.
Yeah, it sounds like some, you know, sounds like some adult stuff's going on there.
You out there, John? Oh, you know, I'm just on some back rub.
I gotta go to Backrub real quick and you know, figure this stuff out. Like I remember that in Ask Jeeves. Is that even still around anymore?
I have no idea. I have no idea. It's completely bizarre.
So Ask
But it's funny
Jeeves.
that-
Ask Jeeves was basically another search engine.
Ask Jeeves?
Yeah, Ask Jeeves. It was like it showed like some butler on there. I'm gonna see if Steve's not on here anymore.
Oh, is that
Now it's ask.com. But it used to be called
is that
Ask
what turned into-
Jeeves.
Okay. Oh, it's still up.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And then it became ask.com.
Yeah, I gotta show the chat this. And welcome, Nye. I just seen you popping in on the old tubes of you. So yeah, so
What's up,
here's this was what I remember. This was the original Ask Jeeves.
Yeah,
Like, this
there's
is
the
what it
guy.
looked like. Yeah.
Oh, look at that website. Oh, man.
Oh yeah, that's trash, ain't it?
Pale yellow. Every
So
website had
bad.
those.
Oh, I know. It just makes me think of when I was a kid. Oh God, going down the rabbit hole a bit here, but going into the 90s and 2000s, I feel like most kids, well, boys anyways, if you were into wrestling back then, you had a backyard wrestling clique, right? And
yeah,
between me and 3 other people, we actually made a website for our little backyard wrestling group. Oh, so bad.
Goodness, the low quality recordings.
Oh, dude,
of, like the cheesy entrances.
Oh, we had.
And then
you gotta
the
think
board
back
just
then we
being
had
held up by 2 milk crates.
Well, we didn't even have our ring wasn't even a ring. It was literally just the grass. There was kids doing like freaking jumping off of the decks onto people. Like, dude, it was ridiculous. And like whenever we recorded stuff, it was so you got to remember, like, when this was been, I was 13, so this was 99. So they still had like the big shoulder mount camcorders that used like a full VHS tape. That's what we had. It was so bad. Oh God. Jeez. I wish if I could have had some of that shit to put on YouTube. Oh man. Whew. Anyhow.
That's funny.
All
Okay,
right.
so a quick rundown. So the Gameshark was produced by Daytel, and then I think the second partner was called Interact. And as they were selling this stuff, different versions of Gameshark started coming out. So there was Codebreaker, which was run by Mad Hats. There was Action Replay. I think Exploder is another one. There was like a handful of game cheating devices that were coming out, and so they basically protected their property by designing it in a way where nobody else would be able to use their code. They encrypted it basically, and I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, so they were getting this stuff sold. I don't necessarily have the numbers on like how much they sold it for, or what they earned back from it. But I remember after the interview where they talked about like how the advanced features of the online capabilities and such, they had reported a net loss, which forced them to sell the Gameshark property because they had to file for bankruptcy.
Okay.
And liquidate all of their stuff.
So that's why Mad Cat's
hurt.
bought them.
Yeah, I said Mad Hats. Mad Cats, yeah, and so that's where they come in. They purchase it. They still keep the Gameshark name. And I don't know what happened after that. But that's like the full extension of Gameshark under the original creators.
Okay. Well, that was quite a bit.
The sale happened after I think 2003, which was why I
Well,
had asked.
took a
like,
while.
When, yeah, which is why I asked when like Google really took off, because I didn't know if it was.
I think when it
2005.
really, really took off, I think it would have been like when it took off, I should say. I mean, obviously it's been around for a while, but I think when it actually took off all the way was probably in the earlier 2000s. I remember Yahoo was like the big search engine for a long time, and then it turned into everybody was using Google anymore instead of Yahoo. I'm trying to find myself on here as far as I'm trying to see a timeline here. I don't even think it's not really showing
Oh, okay.
a timetable
So-
on here.
So sadly, after they bought the Gameshark name, they didn't do anything with it.
They just
shut
bought it
the-
just for having
Yep.
it?
They bought it, they shut the website down, and they didn't even sell any of the Gameshark
Why bother?
stuff on their site. I have no idea. I want to assume it's because they already had their own.
Oh, I
products that they were
see.
selling.
So that would probably make sense then, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, if they weren't doing anything, like, why wouldn't you just use it? Like, it doesn't matter. It's probably like you said, it's probably because, you know, they had their own thing. So they're like, yeah, we'll take some properties out of whatever the hell's in the Gameshark to update our own thing and go from there. So let's see here, just to show people here what I'm looking at. So, you got the, like I showed you guys earlier, the N64 Gameshark. And it says PlayStation Gameshark Pro. Let me see if I can show this. Yeah, there we go. Zoom in a little bit more so you can see how the shape is on this. And that's that slot that we were talking about. You plug that in there.
Man, those cartridges look nice though.
Oh, they do.
For sure. One thing I was always curious about when it came to the game card, the cheating devices making changes to your games so that you could get access to certain things.
Yeah.
If anything were to happen where, you know, a code goes wild or something gets unplugged, does that affect the actual game cartridge itself or
Yeah.
the CD? Because I know that, like for Grand Theft Auto, for instance, if you use too many cheat codes, like I think no matter what save you had, it's just corrupted. Is that the same? Does that same thing apply if you're using cheats and changing things through like Gameshark and Game Genie? Because like everything's already written into the disk, right?
Right.
So it's not like it's not like online where if you messed up, you can update it or scrap it and start over. Like it's
Yeah.
all on that CD. Like, are you able to make that type of change on the disc to where it's like it's just permanently like corrupted?
It's a good question. I don't, you
I
know,
might have
even
to
if
go on
it,
AskJeeves.com and find out.
yeah, go ask Jeeves. But even if, let's just play devil's advocate, even if maybe it doesn't change it per se, based off of what we've been reading on the rest of the stuff, you're probably taking a chance at breaking your stuff.
Yeah,
That's the gist I'm getting from it, because it's like it seems like it just does nothing but you're running the risk of damaging your games, damaging your consoles. So potentially, maybe you could corrupt the disc. Who the hell knows? I don't know.
a very unique thought. I mean, it business-wise, it really sucks that they had to file and sell everything off to a company that just didn't do anything with it. But at least when it was alive, it was pretty cool to see what it was capable of when you knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
couldn't wrap my brain around it as a kid, and I don't think a lot of kids did either. Like I think you had to have had an adult, or at least be a teenager or a young adult, to have been like, okay, this is cool. Like, because the PlayStation 2 market was kind of reaching for everybody, right? So it wasn't just kids anymore. So like at least the adults like understood, you know, what to do with it. But in earlier times, I don't think too many adults were playing games as much as the kids were, right? Or I could be wrong.
Oh, believe me, I'll be honest. There was more adults playing than what I thought back in the day. Like, I believe I brought this up. I'm trying to think. Oh, I can't think. I might have brought this up when I was talking to Rez about when he and I were talking about the arcade era stuff, and I got brought up about like somehow Doom got brought up, and I said how my buddy's mom actually beat the original Doom back. I was probably in like the 4th grade, and she beat it. Like I had a hard time trying to figure it out, and she actually got through the whole game, and she beat it. And I about shit my pants. First off, that I was sitting there thinking I thought it was out of character for an adult to play video games, because up to that point, I didn't know any adults other than my one dad's buddy who was in his late 20s at the time, who gave me a bunch of Sega Genesis games growing up. Other than him, I didn't know anybody who played video games as an adult. Like, most adults looked at video games like, it's gonna rot your brain, bruh. You know, but yeah, when my buddy's mom played it and beat it, it blew my mind, because like she was as old as my mom and dad, and I was like, wow, this is weird.
It made adults a lot cooler to see them play games.
Yeah, it did. And it used to be weird when she would kick us off the TV so she could play like Diddy Kong Racing and shit. She's like, oh, I got time before I gotta go to work. You guys get off. You can play when I go to work. But yeah.
I think my dad would have been cool with me using Gameshark. I don't know that my mom would, though. I always had to ride this high road and not cheat, and that would have been no exception. But because my dad was in that realm of, you know, being a gamer, quote unquote, because he played sports games, so I don't know, like, if that was the full extent of it. But I think he would have probably supported that idea too. It's just there was a very minute window for me to really get the full potential of Gameshark, just because like I had no clue what the fudge I was doing, and I didn't even know if I was supposed to be using Gameshark at the time without getting in trouble, you know?
Right. Now, there was something that you're wanting to share. Now you might have, because I can't remember exactly the story you just told me you were wanting to share something. Now, did you already share that with everybody, the story of how you got in trouble?
No, I didn't. So
I didn't think you did, but I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, so I borrowed, back when we borrowed games off each other. I borrowed Gameshark because I wanted to try it, and at first I was afraid because they scared me into thinking that I was going to destroy my PlayStation. But I kept it and I hid it because at the time, like, I stayed with my grandma, and she wasn't overly aware of the details, but she's heard of my dad talk about it a handful. So it was important that she didn't know what I was doing. So I hid the Gameshark, and then I told her I wanted a friend to come over, and so he came over and he helped me set it up. I think it was which game was it? It wasn't. I think it was God of War that we were using the game on. And at the time, we weren't supposed to have any adult themed games. So I'm already kind of on strike 2. Yeah. I mean, we snuck in everything. Mortal Kombat, Deadly Alliance, San Andreas. There was Hitman. We had games that we were supposed to have, but we played it when she wasn't in there.
That's what's great.
We pop in God of War, and we're using these cheats to get access to like the skins and have the unlimited mana and health and stuff. But the game froze.
Oh no!
And we freaked out
thinking you broke the game.
Froze, well, it froze at a part where I remember this very clearly because it's still funny to this day. It froze to the part where we started at the beginning where we were going up against Medusa, like the giant snake lady, right? And
yeah.
In this game, like nudity is pretty prevalent, at least in terms of like the chest area, right? So Medusa had no bra on, essentially. Okay. It froze to the part where he was ripping her head off.
And then you just see her tits, like, look at this.
We're like,
nice fucking tits. Oh, it's so good. Imagine your mom walking out of that. Oh my god!
Oh, I would have been grounded. I would have had my console taken from me. She would have sold it.
Oh,
we didn't get in trouble, thankfully, but Grandma was kind of grilling us for a while because we were acting a little suspicious. And I played it off like, the game was frozen, so we had to restart it. We're just waiting for it to turn on.
Oh, goodness.
And I kid you not, I was blistering on the inside because I thought when she came in, I thought she had seen it and it cut off right at that point, and I was pretending like I was reaching on the back of the TV to make sure like the connection was still on.
Oh my god. That's so good. Oh god. I didn't have any M-rated stories like that. My parents were very anti M-rated games when I was growing up. Because, you know, I lived through as a child anyways, living through the Mortal Kombat Doom era, you know, that getting plastered all over the TV. Violence in video games causing children to freak out and kill their families, even though that wasn't the case, but you know what I mean. So, but that was like the whole thing, and my parents bought in on it. They're like, you're not playing that shit. You're not gonna be a serial killer when you grow up. I'm like, what? It's just a game.
Nice. And I used to sneak a bunch of M-rated games in my room when I was 5 or 6.
Yeah, that's what I seen.
That's kind of what you had to do. Yeah, I mean it, and it's funny to me because some of those games my dad bought for me, but like I wasn't supposed to play them.
Yeah, like I never got to play M-rated games unless I was at a buddy's house. And it was so embarrassing because there was times where like my parents would say something to my friend's parents like, he's not allowed to play these games. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, everybody, it's collateral damage. Everybody gets in trouble.
And I'm like, gosh, damn it, man. Like,
and you got to go to school the next day with everyone staring at you.
Yeah, like, exactly. Like, got the scarlet letter. It's just like, don't invite him over. The fun police will arrive. Fuck. I hated it.
Grand Theft Auto used to get me in trouble for the longest time. Because I used to do this thing where you would pick up the prostitute and then you would drive back in like a back of the house somewhere. You know, that plays. And then after you're done, you shoot the prostitute and then get your money back.
Oh my god. Oh fuck.
It's so messed up. It's so messed up, but it was funny at the time.
Oh, it's funny. Don't get me wrong. It's funny, but fucked up all at the same time.
Yeah. No, it was messed up for sure. Like, it started on San Andreas, and then did that on GTA 4. And I only did it twice on GTA 5. And I was like, man, I need help.
That's all right. See, here's the thing, though, man. Like, I try to explain this to people like when these debates have happened as far as video games playing a role with people doing stuff. Because like I personally don't buy into it. That's just my whole thing, I guess. But then then the counter argument is, well, everybody's minds are wired differently. Sometimes stuff can alter a way somebody thinks, blah blah blah. I don't know. I just personally I can't buy into it. But
yeah, I mean if I look at it now, like, yeah, that's a pretty messed up thing to do, but that doesn't mean, that's how you view people, and that's how you would view a situation that you would actually
it's like comedy, to a degree. It's like with video games, you're emulating something that you would not do in real life.
It's
you know what I
heavily
mean?
Exaggerated, yeah.
It's,
in that game, you're tasked with objectives, and most of those objectives are already messed up on its own.
That's all it is. It's just that's what I'm saying. It's like I said, it's like comedy, because like comedy is supposed to be like, these are the things that you would say or you think, but you're not going to say in a politically correct setting. Hence the reason it's comedy. It's not supposed to be that way, But same thing with video games. I mean, I was just kind of trying to compare that, because comedy, you're saying stuff you wouldn't say in a real life situation because you don't want to offend somebody, you don't want to upset somebody. Same thing with video games. You're going to do these things in a video game. It's not like, I mean, granted, it's sad that stuff like this probably does happen, as far as like somebody probably has been with a prostitute and then sadly killed them. But I mean, the vast majority of people, I would like to think, who would do that in a video game are not going to do that in real life. And if they would, well, then, I mean, they probably had these intuitions long before the video game came around.
Right. Like, take Mortal Kombat, right? That game is extremely violent.
Yeah.
There is nobody that I've known that have played that game that are just like, I want to shove some knives in that dude there and rip his whole head off. Like, that doesn't work like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, when we seen Sub-Zero's fatality for the first time, we didn't go, man, I can't wait to go to school. I'm ripping Tommy's head off. Like,
Now,
nobody's doing that.
As a kid, our imaginations are very wild, and there's certain things that we look at, and sometimes we need, some understanding on what the difference is between reality and fiction.
Right.
Wrestling, for instance, right? I didn't realize wrestling was fake until after Vince McMahon blew up in the limo, and then he came back just to tell everyone that Chris Benoit died.
Yeah.
Right. So that didn't necessarily mean that I was just running around going, the Undertaker's gonna take you alive. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes we get wrapped up a little too much on things that aren't we get too wrapped up, I feel like, on things that are so absolute that it dilutes the reason we have games, TV shows, and stuff to take breaks from life. You know what I mean? Like, we do these things to take a break, to chill out, and to relax. And so,
yeah, no, I get it. And that's like, I've had kind of conversations like about similar stuff with my wife, as far as like, reflecting on how you used to think versus how you do now. And, like I've explained to my wife how, as a kid, even as a teenager, and even being as a young adult, like, between 18 and maybe even like 21, like my empathy levels were like, apparently, I don't want to say they were, I just want to say maybe they weren't developed all the way. Because like, I could watch a movie, like I watched any sort of genre of movie and never felt a single thing. Like, I never felt like, man, I could cry here, or, ooh, man, that kind of makes me uneasy. You know what I mean? Like, I never had these feelings. I would just watch it, and the movie was what it was, and I was like, oh, okay, that's entertaining. But as I said, I don't know what happened, but it's like some switch went off in my brain, like when I was in my latter 20s, and I started noticing when I was watching movies and certain stuff, like I could actually like I was like I'd be like, oh, if I was in that situation, like I could feel like the uneasiness and certain stuff like that. And that's just like, I think that's the difference between like an adult viewing things versus a kid. Because a kid, it's just your brain's like a big blender of shit being spewed together, and I just don't think that it just responds the same way because you haven't gone through a whole slew of life experiences yet. So it's like you kind of, and you haven't, I should say, you haven't experienced certain things, so you might not feel a certain way. So your brain's not, interpreting it the way you would as an adult because you haven't experienced it. But
right. Well, I think, yeah. So life experiences definitely shape your thinking and your ideology. Video games take up such a small portion of that.
Yeah.
In such a way where, what do you do when you're done with a game, right? You turn it off. And then you go about the rest of your day. Everything you've experienced in that day changes and shapes your thinking and is partly responsible for the type of person you end up being. The video game doesn't do that because you turn it off. And when you turn it back on, it goes back to where you left off, and your sole focus is what's in that moment in that game. And it does not carry over into your life unless it involves, using it as a discussion board with your friends. But as it doesn't fully affect your life, it does at the same time, because that's how you connect with friends. That's how you connect with other people. That's how you get close to somebody.
Right.
It's used as, it can be used as like a bridge to so many different things. I mean,
it can.
When I was a kid, when I played God of War 1 and 2, I wasn't thinking about getting in bed with various women or, murdering people. Like, I wanted to be a game developer because it looked cool. Mm-hmm. Like, the character designs were cool, the environment looked cool, the process behind it was awesome, and the fact that it was just a video game that I was really interested in. Like, I was interested in video games. Like, I wanted to make games. That's what I got out of it. And I mean, it could have shaped my life then and there, but it wouldn't have done it in a negative way.
Yeah, I mean, it shaped me. I can't tell you how many friends I've met over the years because of video games.
Yeah.
It just
doesn't do it in a way where it creates this sort of narrative that the media has put out for a long time. Like, if anything, the games provide positive reinforcement.
I think, if I know this would never happen, obviously, but I think if kids could take this one aspect of how the gaming world was prior to online gaming, I think they're comfortable with just talking on a headset, right? And I think, because I bring this up because just being around my nieces and nephews, I got a slew of them. I feel like all of them to some degree have like these social anxieties and stuff, right? Like they're not, like they don't like, they have issues with socializing with kids they've grown up with, and they've said that other kids felt this way. And I feel like that has a lot to do with it. And I just feel like if they were to have been able to go through like what you and I grew up with, like you said, borrowing games, because by borrowing games means what? There's a transaction. There's also a verbal transaction. Obviously, you have to talk to said person to get said game. And like, that's how I became really close friends with the one buddy of mine. And, I was in the 8th grade, and a friend of mine knew that I like to play RPGs. And he goes, "Oh, you need to talk to my one buddy, Nathan." And I was like, "Oh, who's he?" He's like, "Oh, you'd like him. He's a cool guy, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So he introduced me to him. And that's how I learned. I got to play Legend of Legaia. And how I also played through Metal Gear Solid because of him. And I'm trying to think, he gave me another game that I'm blanking on that because of him I was able to play. And, there was other people along the way, but I just brought that up because, it's just fresh in my brain. But nonetheless, if the kids were to have been able to or could go through that, I think they would get a lot more life experiences versus just virtual experiences with the online thing. And I know we kind of went down the rabbit hole a bit, but it's still good conversation nonetheless. But it's something that I think I wish that they could somehow emulate, but I don't think, I don't know if the gumption's there.
No, you're fine. And I might revise what I just said. So they do, because I kind of read what I was talking about, but the games, they do make an important, they do cause impact, and it can be pretty significant. But if you're comparing it to the essential functions of daily life,
yeah,
it's not the main resource or reason. But what it is a lot of the times is it's used to help bridge connections with people and life itself. Like it's that type of foundation that, like with what you were saying, that kids kind of need to build these life skills so that they can, do better in society and things like that. And, even if it's just like games where you don't think they'll get that, I mean, it's still, there's still it's a means of an escape. Like if they're not learning something from it, then, it's being used to escape. Maybe they like the music that Nye pointed out. Maybe there's certain elements of the game that draw them to feel like there's a higher calling for them than what they're getting at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
No, I get it. So
Yeah. Not to shortchange games, because
no,
games are one of the most important aspects of life ever.
I mean, shit. Just for instance, if it wasn't for video games, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now talking to you.
Yeah.
Or those that are here in the chat and stuff. I mean, none of this would exist right now if it wasn't for games.
Yeah.
It's just like that's what people don't get. That's what a lot of these freaking old man get off my lawns freaking don't understand. It's like there's a lot more than just the video games themselves, There is a community, rather you want to call it toxic or whatever. There still is a community, and they're not all toxic. They're not all pieces of shit. They're not all echo chambers. I mean, there's a lot of good people that play games, and, a lot of small, tight-knit communities that come along the ways with it. And not to, just pat the back of our own little community, but, I've said it a million times. I can't stress enough how happy I am to be around the people that are in our group. Like, that's what keeps me going. 'Cause, I mean, I know I'm never gonna fucking blow up. I mean, I came to terms with that a long time ago. I do it because I enjoy talking with you guys and bullshitting about stuff throughout my days and stuff to, it helps keep my sanity.
It's usually focusing on the communities that helps, that type of thing. But yeah, at the end of the day, video games brought us together, but it's not what defines us at the end of the day.
All right. So now we had our TED Talk for the day.
Well, thank you all for joining our TED Talk, ladies and gentlemen.
So, trying to look real quick. If there was anything else, you want to move?
Oh,
yeah, we can move
Game
on
Facts.
from Game Facts. I don't think I have anything pulled up for Game Facts.
And the expansion of cheats online. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm trying to think. Well, real quick, we don't need to go over too much. We'll go to game facts just a moment. I just want to show you guys real quick. Just a disc. This was one of the code breaker discs off of. This was for the PS2 that you could get do stuff again, cheats and whatnot. Code breaker. Oh yeah. And then this was just the action replay card. Like this is one that I have for my Sega Saturn, and do cheats and all that stuff. Which some of the cheats on there I noticed. Like I'll be posting a video of me playing Virtua Cop at some point. I just filmed it today, so I gotta edit it. But there's one cheat on there. It doesn't work right. Like it's supposed to be like you have infinite lives, but it doesn't work. Like it says it's on, but it doesn't work. I don't know, because I tried turning it on just to see if it would if it would work. Because I was like, I just want to do what I wanted to do for the video was do a playthrough and see how many lives I used. You know what I mean, or how many continues rather. And but it didn't work that way. It was like because before I did it, or before I recorded all of it, I tested it out first and was like, oh, I have this cheat on, but I still only have X amount of continues, so this is basically useless, but okay. All right.
I wonder if it would work on... Not to cut you off.
No,
I
you're
wonder
good.
if it would work on like really difficult games like Silver Surfer.
Good question.
And Ninja Gaiden. That would be interesting. Then people can finally stop breaking their controllers, trying to speedrun the game on 100%.
Oh god. Okay, so exactly, Nye. That was a while ago too, when we were talking on voice chat on Discord. So going back to game facts now. So it says created in November of '95 and was bought by CNET Networks in 2003. And it says it is now currently owned by Fandom Inc. since October of 2022. So it's a database of video game information, cheat codes, reviews, game saves, box art images, and screenshots, almost all of which are submitted by volunteer contributors. Systems covered included 8-bit Atari platform through modern consoles, as well as computer games and mobile games. Submissions made to the site are reviewed by the site's current editor, Alan Tyner. So before we get into game facts all the way, because I'll let you take the reins on this, I just wanted to note that for my own personal self, going into the early stages of the internet and the websites for game cheats and walkthroughs, I used to use IGN all the time. And again, we talked about this was before IGN is what it is now. Like I liked IGN back in the day. It was really good. There were other sites that I used as well, but I felt like at the time IGN was kind of ahead of the curve, so to speak, when it came to the quantity and quality of the stuff that I was looking for. Rather, it was a walkthrough or just trying to find some random cheats to use on something. But I wasn't usually a big cheats guy. For the most part, it was always walkthroughs, like in the event that I was stuck and I was just like to that point where I was like, okay, I've given myself enough mental anguish. I've tried my best to figure out something. What am I missing? And then I would go from there. But yeah, like I said, I used to like IGN. I don't know what you guys think, but
personally, I switched between GameFAQs and IGN. There was another website, I think it was GameSpot, that used cheats as well. But oh gosh, those IGN, man. So back in the day, we didn't have smartphones.
No.
So our access to this type of stuff was extremely limited, especially
Yes.
for me, because I had to take a bus to the library. And every now and then, we would just not have internet at home because, I would be an idiot kid and get grounded. So sometimes when I hang out with my cousins, we'll have printouts of the game facts and cheats. Sometimes we won't even have the printouts because we won't have the allowance money to print it out. We'll just write it on paper and then share the cheats. And sometimes what we wrote down doesn't have the right code. But I remember when God of War 3 came out, which was around the time where we did have smart, but it wasn't as it wasn't as high end as it is now. I remember when God of War 3 came out, I bought 1 and 2, and I went to GameFAQs because they had it was all on one file. So they had the entire echelon of like where to go to find like the Easter eggs, where to go to get this trophy, the cheat codes here, and what you got to look out for, like guides on how to fight certain bosses. Even if there's a style you don't want to play, this is how you most effectively can get through this. GameFAQs had it all. And I had this brilliant idea of printing it, not realizing that it was going to take up the entire ink.
Time for Dash to get raked over the coals.
Which I did, but I got all of it printed out, so I was Gucci. And it began the summer of turmoil because I had pretty much spent my entire summer playing God of War 1 through 3 throughout my entire time, like during high school. And it was such an emotional experience because I had a goal to complete platinum on all 3 of them. And to even get to that point, they always threw in you had to beat it on God mode or Titan mode. Or any mode that was just extremely difficult.
Tough game.
And you had to play their challenges, which was complete baloney in and of itself. I went through so many different stages of emotions playing these games and just wanting to break my controller, quitting, crying, yelling, right? And
the game's cheating.
If it honestly hadn't been for GameFAQs having that for me, I wouldn't have done it because no other website at the time had everything that I needed all on one set. Like I could have gotten it from IGN or GameSpot, but
GameSpot used to be really good too.
GameSpot was very good. GameSpot kind of like I went to GameSpot for just GTA cheats. It had everything there. I mean, all of them had it, but it was those 3 that I cared.
I didn't know about GameFAQs until how I don't know, but I didn't know about them until I think I was in my 20s. But I was always IGN and GameSpot were the main 2 that I'd use most of the time.
I love that they're still up. Like their website's still up and kicking.
Yeah,
like, it's a very great thing to see because you're starting to see some of these websites shut down after all these years, and it's always sad. But I'm happy to see GameSpot still alive and well.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, that was like my greatest experience ever having a fax, because they came out with like the books that you can buy and all that stuff, but my mom certainly wasn't gonna buy it for me. I had to keep negotiating her to buy games for me, let alone like the ones that were rated M for mature.
Oh yeah.
I had to take matters into my own hands most of the time, and even before then. You're writing down cheats.
Mm-hmm.
You're writing down these codes that are all on this forum website.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have the internet at home. But those were simple times, and that's how you had it done.
And this is what, like my own personal experiences. Anybody who might be lurking, I know we've got a small crowd tonight, which it's fine. But I'm glad we have our little group here, nonetheless, that's interested in what we're talking about here. But if anybody that's lurking about had any experiences growing up in the early stages of the internet and the game cheats walkthrough websites, you'll know for walkthroughs. I don't know. I'll be honest, I haven't looked at a single walkthrough online, and God,
They're very descriptive.
I don't even know. Like, to be honest with you, it's been so long, but how they used to be, like I should say, how they used to be originally, holy shit. I mean, it was literally just text, no pictures, no pictures, and I'll be honest, kudos to the authors. My God, I would never have taken the time to type all that shit out. But
I hope they got paid. Like, the
dude,
dedication.
if they didn't, my God, because all I remembered was, I can't remember what game it was, but one of the first games I actually got a walkthrough for, and it was for an RPG. I just can't remember which one. But some part of me wants to say for some reason it was I want to say it was Mario RPG. I think it was. I was trying to scroll to the part to where, because I was trying to figure out. Have you played Mario RPG? I should have asked you that before to start going off on this. Have you ever played that game before, all the way through?
No, but my inner circles played it.
Okay, so there's a part where there's a 3D puzzle, but you can't see inside of it. You have to keep jumping and kind of shifting around and getting your way through it. And I could not figure out for the life of me how to get through it. And I thought that by dumb luck I would finally get through, but it never happened, so that I had to find the walkthrough. I had to, and mind you, the walkthrough was not broken up by pages. It was just one long page. Just huge. The whole entire game on one page. So
yeah, because they use those line breaks for
Yeah.
each section of the game that
Yep.
help you sort of separate it all. It was
But
like
it was
that
just-
for God of War 3.
Yeah, but that's all it was. And there was no pictures, because you got to remember, again, the main reason too back then why it was just text was because internet was extremely slow back then. 56K was fucking, my God, it was mind-numbingly slow. Like, you're downloading at like 2 kilobytes a second. It's so slow. So anyhow, you know, it would take forever, number one, just to load the page. So then I just remember mindlessly scrolling, and it took me like, I don't know, I'm just going to spitball, half hour to find where I needed to find, because I'm trying to go through all this text. And oh my gosh, it was so bad. But even there's something that I actually should have brought up, and I'll show you guys real quick, because I have a couple of them. Here we're talking about the early stages of the websites, as far as cheat codes and walkthroughs and stuff like that. What I have in my hand, we got Brady Game Strategy Guide, Secret Codes for Sega Genesis, Hidden Gems, Levels, Menus, and more. Where's my camera at? So there's this. So this was a book, and this came out.
Look at that.
From 1996. It's got Mortal Kombat 3 cheats menu, Sonic and Knuckles, Secret Levels, Vector Man. Yeah, so that was from 96. And then I have the Game Masters, the Complete Video Game Guide 1995 by Jeff Rovin. This says over 4 million copies of this video game guides in print. So this one obviously says 95, but here's this guy right here. It's a pretty thick book too. So yeah,
Man,
390 pages.
My first ever walkthrough guidebook that I ever bought was for Sonic Heroes. That was a huge book. I think IGN printed it out. But it had everything that I thought it had everything that I needed, but I think the Internet Facts and Walkthrough gave a little more information. But it was still pretty cool to have, because it had the art of the characters, the scenes, not the scenes, but the like the game levels where you can see where you're supposed to go. And just overall, like, that was a very fun book to have. It felt like I had a collector's book, because when I was going to school, I remember sharing it with everybody, and everyone was just so, like, in awe by this book and how, like, colorful everyone was. And so I just remember walking away going, yeah, I'm gonna buy more of these. And then that was when my mom...
Sorry, I wasn't trying to ghost you there. I just had my mic muted because I was trying to type on the keyboard. I didn't want you to hear me pounding on it.
Oh, okay. Hey, if you wanted me to take over, just let me know. You know, we can
you're
definitely...
good. You're good, man. So,
Alright, guys, in my audience now.
Hey, they're just as much yours as they are mine, buddy. We are preaching to the choir right now, you know. So, let's see here. Trying to see. What? Was there anything in particular about GameFAQs that you wanted to bring up that you haven't already?
That was kind of it, mainly. Oh, I guess, I guess as far as the internet portion of it, I haven't really fully experienced what it was like to discuss about it in forums.
Okay.
It wasn't until I got older that I got into it more. Because at first it seemed like a foreign and scary idea of just talking to strangers online like that.
Yeah.
And the way they broke down the timeline of the discussion was confusing. Because I think at first it used to be the first page was the oldest, and then you had to go all the way to like page 200 something for the newest.
Oh my god.
Yeah. But I don't know if it's like that now. They may have changed it. But most forums used to be like that. And then, trying to think. That pretty much is it as far as like my exposure to like GameFAQs.
Well, just looking real quick here. Apparently they were affiliated with IGN because it says in '97 GameFAQs became an independent affiliate of Imagine Games Network, or IGN, leading to the placement of affiliate links on the homepage. User contests were introduced during this period. The first monthly contest, which was held in '98, received 253 entries. That's not a lot! Like, that tells you how small this was. That's why I try telling people, like, the early days, like, of the internet with these things, like, you would have, like, if you would have had a contest on one of these websites now, it wouldn't have been just 253 entries. It probably would have been, like, 2.5 million entries. Like, that's just so crazy to me. Oh my gosh. And it says GameFAQs went through several design changes, including a pink color scheme, before arriving at the blue-colored layout that was used until 2004.
Which,
go ahead.
I think if you look at it now, it's kind of like yeah, it's got the Nintendo GameCube color scheme. But that's still pretty cool nonetheless, though.
Yeah. That still blows my mind. Just 253 entries. Because, like I said, because even in my mind, as a kid, when I seen IGN, the way it was laid out even back then, I thought it was like this huge production, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it probably wasn't, but it seemed like it was. It had the image of a well-put-together website for back then. And, you know, 253 entries. My goodness. Like, that just blows my mind. Like, that's just how small they probably really were. And we just, either that or people
but we didn't
just
know it.
Yeah.
We, you know, when, and that's, I think, what has made everything, like, great for us was we didn't really need to know the full details of how this stuff was being run.
Yeah. Was it a big conglomerate, or was it just Joe Blow in his bedroom?
Yeah. And we didn't really even need to know. Like, our
No, we
imagination.
didn't. No. We just wanted the information. That's it.
Yeah. Like, we were set.
Yeah. So, and then it carries on to just say in November of 99, several changes occurred in rapid succession. A search box was added to every page on November 5th, the site's 4th anniversary. On November 7th, the message boards opened in a beta testing mode, and then the poll of the day was introduced at the end of the month. These changes marked BC's increased concentration on the site, and it was around this time that GameFAQs became his full-time job. Until this time, he had been working as a programmer. On August 9th of 2000, the site received 1 million hits in a single day for the first time. Which, for those that might not remember, were you old enough, Dosh, to remember websites having a counter at the bottom of at the bottom of the page? Like
Counter?
To show.
I don't think so.
Oh man, fuck! God, you're making me feel like a fucking dinosaur, dude.
Oh wow!
Gosh damn it! But yeah,
I
like.
didn't start getting into this stuff fully until I think 2004.
Yeah, they might have stopped doing counters probably shortly after I graduated high school. So I graduated in 2004. But there used to be at the bottom of pages a counter to show how many people visited your website. So that way, it was for the web page developers and stuff to see how much traffic was coming to their website, and to just try to track basically the traffic. And then
that's crazy.
And like for this, like how they said they received 1 million hits in a single day for this time, that was like, for them to basically flex and be like, yeah, we got this many people in one day, you know what I mean? And now nobody fucking talks about that. Nobody gives a fuck how many hits you get on your page. Now the only thing they care about is how many fucking retweets or, views you get on YouTube, and that's it. But that's pretty much how it was for web pages. I guess you could basically say that the view count for a YouTube video is the equivalent to how they used to look at the counters on web pages.
Well, the view count, yeah, I mean, it used to be something because it was treated as a really rare and it was treated as a rare and big deal. Like if it had a million views, like that was a video for the ages. At least that's how I felt.
Oh yeah.
Now everyone's pulling it off.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is fine, but I don't know, it had a charm.
Yeah.
YouTube was different then.
Yeah, it was a good time back in the day. I wish I would have never gave up on content creation back then, but that's not here nor there. But by 2001, the GameFAQs chat had been launched. However, it was removed by May 2001 due to administrative issues.
Oh.
Man, that wasn't very, very long then.
What type of issues they had?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. So it doesn't exactly go into what fandom, like why they acquired it. Just says fandom acquired various properties, including GameFAQs and GameSpot, from Red Ventures in October of 2022. And then this chart here is just showing the growth of GameFAQs. I'm assuming, what is this? Says growth of facts hosted. So it went from like pretty next to nothing from 95 to 97. Then it just shoots up to 2000. The year 2000 is shooting up to almost 20,000. I'm assuming like maybe that's the questions or what have you, and then it just goes up from there.
Yeah.
So it looks like it shoots up in 2000, kind of trickles up through 2004, then shoots like a rocket after that. Sometimes that's how it is, though. It takes a while for stuff to kind of come into fruition and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I had a thought. I might think on it. Might think on it some more.
Okay. Well, whenever you get it, just, you let me know. I'm just trying to go through and see if there's any other tidbit of information I can pull off on this. And I know there's other sites I can use besides Wiki. I just like using it because some of the stuff, it summarizes it a lot better. Like, it's good to have a lot of detailed information, but when you're trying to pull the meat and potatoes out, that's what I'm trying to do here.
Yeah. Oh, you can change the layout on this. That's cool.
Who, me?
On GameFAQ, you can change the colors of.
Oh, I thought you were talking about. I thought you were looking at the podcast, and I thought you said I changed the screen, and I was like, oh, that's probably because I've been toggling back and forth.
You look a little better on this screen.
Yes.
Like, wow, have you been shaving?
So let's see here. I think that's trying to. I don't think anybody cares about the CNET acquisition or anything like that. So I think that's pretty much that does it for the GameFAQs thing. I do want to look into real quickly. I'm trying to see how long we've been on for. Okay, we got time. One thing I wish, I don't know, I'm going to try to see if I can, I'm going to see if I can. I'm trying to look up IGN's original layout if I can find it.
Man. There's a website that are you on that website? The time capsule?
I just went onto Google and just typed in IGN original web page layout to see if I could pull up like something from back in the day.
I'll have to find it and share it with you. But there's a website that will take you. It's like an archives library, but it has web links to past websites where you can go through old websites that, I mean, it doesn't function the same, but you can still experience it. I wonder if the IGN the original IGN is on there.
I would know. Is that I think that's the original symbol, if I remember right, or close to it. But as soon as I seen it, I was like, man, that's gotta be it. But I don't think I can't find an actual web page. I seen like that's the excuse me, that's the logo. But damn it. No, that's not it. Damn it. I can't find it. No, well, I tried. Wayback Machine should be the web archive.
Yep. I think that's the one.
Is that what it is, huh?
Yeah, let's see here.
Okay.
.org. Yeah, this is the one. Let's see here.
Browse
and then it
history.
Gives you a time date that you can.
I would know. Let's see here. 99.
They give it to you in snapshots, so.
That's fine. I'll take it if it'll open up.